Welcome to We Are CC podcast. This is now almost the end of the 9th month that we've been doing this. So thank you to everyone, especially if you've been here since the beginning. I'm not going to say we're the smartest or even the most exciting podcast out there, but we do like and love being a part of the Reddit community, and we love engaging you. Little known fact, we do try to dedicate a good bit of time to the most popular posts and comments in Reddit every week. So hopefully it's been relevant for you and continues to be. Joining me this week, we have Jay Winterm. We have the big man himself, Oz. We have Mr. Mister. We have a new participant. Now he's a longtime technical analyst on the Discord side, but first-time podcaster, config_JSON. It's some kind of nerdy nickname. I don't know. And then we have Jared, who is fighting with his mic to get back in on the Reddit side. So thank you. This is the biggest group we've ever had on here.
Got my hand raised, sir.
There we go. So this should be exciting. Right. Let's go ahead and kick it off talking about, like we usually do, a little bit about the macro, a little bit about Bitcoin, and probably not about the British pound, because I think Oz is really depressed right now.
I
couldn't wait for my joke on that one, though.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, what's your joke?
No, it's not funny anymore.
Oh,
I
mean, the only joke really, just post up a chart of the British pound. What else do you need to do? Yeah. So if anyone hasn't seen, and I posted it up in the reminder post, the dollar is just really crushing a lot of competing currencies. Looking at, and in that chart I posted, I think we had the Japanese, Chinese, UK, Euro, all of those currencies represented, and horribly underperforming the dollar. So the dollar is up, measuring against the time period since COVID Black Swan is up like, 16%. And the best currency among that group is showing, about -2% looks like. And that's the, Chinese, is it yen? No, it's Japanese.
Yuan? Yeah.
Yes. And then it's only downhill from there. Everything else is double-digit losses against the dollar in terms of value. What do you guys? I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think I've been seeing a lot of doom posts? Talking about like the end of fiat. I don't think it's that bad, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
I mean, like, fiats were born to die. From my perspective, like, based on their inception, they can't work in the long run.
Getting my headphones.
Well, I think it's interesting to see kind of the rally that we've been having, and to be fair, right, the DXY has been a lot higher in the past, but you'd have to go back decades, right, to find it higher. And the thing is, though, in those days when the DXY, when the dollar was that strong back in those days, we didn't have as much of a globalized economy where the dollar was just so prevalent in debt, in trade, in settlement, right? And for me, I don't have any jokes about it, but what I think is concerning is the hotter we get on the dollar, I think the more red flags should be going off. Because there is this possibility for kind of this vicious cycle, right? This snowball effect where you have the cost of other nations, not U.S., but other nations that hold their debt in U.S. dollars, right? It makes it harder for them to repay the debt. It also makes it harder for them to buy goods coming from the U.S. or any goods that are traded in U.S. dollars. And the harder it becomes for them to pay for trade or pay their debt down, the more they're going to have to start printing money, and that devalues their currency. And eventually, that's just kind of that's a cycle that could really lead to a lot of pain down the road. And on the flip side of that is that essentially injects a lot of capital from everywhere into the U.S. market. And that's going to work against the Fed's ability to reduce inflation. And so that could kick off, even more aggressive policy in the US, which leads to even more pain in the US. So I think it's a lose-lose situation, right? It's fun to make jokes about other currencies, being close to or under a dollar. But at the end of the day, I do think it is quite concerning. It is quite concerning.
To me,
Yeah, Mister, you're totally right. What you just described is called the milkshake effect. The milkshake effect.
Oh my God,
Okay?
milkshake effect. Yes, great. Yes.
Yeah, I've been talking about it since May. I said in an article once, DXY to 120 wasn't so far-fetched, and from there it's history. We are at 140.
I think to me
Yeah,
the most interesting thing over the last few weeks, especially the last few days where the Great British Pound has just been getting destroyed, but I mean over the last couple months the euro has been tanking as well. And over that time, I mean, Bitcoin hasn't been flat, but Bitcoin's basically been flat. I mean, versus the U.S. dollar. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it seems like you see DXY going up. That's a flee to safety, right? Like people are running to the safety of the U.S. dollar, and apparently, Bitcoin's holding up about as well as the U.S. dollar, while some of these big European currencies are not holding up as well.
Well, I have an interesting statistic to kind of back onto what Pappy was saying earlier about like the doom of all the global currencies, and I heard this at a Web3 conference actually recently. Each previous world currency lasted for 94 years, and the current US dollar has lasted for 104 years as the world global currency. So it's kind of scary that it's now actually gaining so much strength on top of all the other currencies, because typically, I mean, from a history perspective, that's not really what's meant to happen. But I mean, obviously, stuff happens and the economy changes.
Yeah, but if
It's an interesting
the average is 94, like what's the standard deviation? Because I mean, it could be plus or minus 50 years,
Well,
right? Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And we've had fiat currencies in a form since the dawn of time, since like going back to like the Sanskrit days, cuneiform, ancient Babylonia. Like read the book Debt, the first 5,000 years, and this is the history of fiat. It rises, collapses, they manipulate the money, and boom, this is old as time.
An interesting point. I think it was either Jay Winterm or Config. One of you brought up where Dixie's at right now at around 113, 114, which is just incredibly high. I mean, for most of us listening, maybe even all of us, that's the highest it's been in our lifetime. But if you look at where Bitcoin peaked last year, well, we'll say I like to say March. I mean, it was between March to May. In that time frame, we had some highs, ignoring the 69K. Since that time, the dollar has risen to about 22%, and that's knocked us down to what, 20K? So about two-thirds. That killed off about 2/3 of the crypto market cap. Doing some very approximate math here. So if we're at 113 and we're thinking 120 is coming, I mean, how much more do you really think that crypto markets could lose against the dollar here? Because it has been pretty flat, but if we rally all the way to 120, I'm not so sure I feel confident it's going to hold the, 18 to 20K level.
Probably not. Probably he's gonna high.
Sorry, is he config? Are you? I'm not hearing it.
Yeah.
Oh, never.
Probably gonna high 16.8. That's my level. Besides that, I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, I've seen a few levels. I've seen 16s mentioned. I've seen all the way down to so I'd say 10K, then the 13K range, 12, 13K, and then the 16 to 17K range, all referenced as support levels. It's very possible that we could break down further. I think that's something at this point, despite some of us being, a little more reserved in terms of our bearishness, it is something that if you haven't considered in your trading, either setting buy levels for those, if you're interested in accumulating a little bit here, or setting stop losses and some of your trades, those are levels that you probably want to pay attention to. Is there any, before we move off of the Bitcoin topic, are there any other levels that you guys think are significant that folks should be watching? Do you think it's going to potentially could go lower than 10K in a worst case scenario?
I could see 3 to 5 just as an extreme, but beyond 3, that's where I'd start to be really worried.
That's a pretty disastrous scenario there, 3 or 5. I don't know if we're gonna be friends anymore, sir. So yeah, we might have to part ways on that one. Sorry, but what I'm looking at is it's not a price prediction. I don't have any targets, but what I would love to see is just kind of a reversal from that trend, right? Of inverse correlation between the dollar and Bitcoin, because I think and I've been saying this, and I feel like we've been saying this, right? But the decoupling, just kind of waiting for that decoupling, right? And with the stats that Oz is talking about, that maybe we're overdue to lose the dollar as global reserve status, maybe the obvious pains that Fiat is going through, maybe that's setting the stage for a decoupling and a flight into safety into Bitcoin / maybe Ethereum even. So that's my hope. That's my take, at least. No price targets though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What do you got, Oz? I cut you off there.
That's all good. Well, I'm not really focusing on anything different. The only thing I'm really focusing on is the dividing everything by money supply number 2. That's really been the most effective thing for me currently, especially if like you've been focusing on DCA, because at this point, targeting specific levels is pretty much just throwing darts at numbers. I mean, we've had hundreds of levels that have all broken, and I think it's a pointless game at this point. So, I think it's just worth watching the market structure on M2, because that's really where things are going to start shifting, and I think that's when you'll actually be able to tell when the trend changes. But until then, I'm literally just DCAing.
Yeah, I think for me the only number that's really important right now is like 17.6 or whatever the low in June was. And as long as we stay above that, I think I'm feeling pretty comfy, but watch out, I guess. I could definitely see it dip down, at least real quick, close to 10K or 12K if we break below 17.5 or whatever.
I think I agree with you, Jay Winterm. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good that the upper teens are a decent accumulation range. You have to consider that the dollar's rallied almost 10% since we set that floor in June, since we had that massive capitulation event and all the different centralized finance offerings were nuking and everything went bankrupt. Since all of that, the dollar's risen another almost 10%, and Bitcoin for the most part remained in the same range, even rallying as far as almost 25K. And I think that does say something about how much interest there is in this range. It wouldn't have been able to hold this level otherwise. I mean, if you look at the historical patterns, it really should have dumped further if you just went based off of the Dixie to Bitcoin inverse correlation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that's right, because the demand is there, right? The underlying demand is there. Price action is one thing, but I think I saw a stat last week where like 3 or 3.5 billion, that was how much was bought up by Bitcoin whales, right, at the depressed prices right now. So I think that kind of shows underlying bullishness. It's tough when the macro is just so bad right now.
True. So let's move on to something a little more fun, or at least a little more interesting. I don't know if fun's the right word. It turns out, at least according to Twitter and the news that I've read, that Do Kwon has an Interpol red notice officially issued for him. Now, what that is, a red notice is effectively an international warrant. There's 195 member nations to Interpol. So technically, if he was residing in any of those 195 countries, and they have an extradition treaty for whatever crimes he's accused of, that they could send him back to Korea, detain him and send him back. Now, I think Config, you mentioned this earlier, but he had commented somewhere that he was just chilling on his couch writing some code. That was his response to someone that had tagged him on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do we believe that? I mean, we think he's just chilling, watching Netflix, not caring.
Definitely in the bunker. He is hiding. There's no way he's not.
In the bunker. Maybe that's where all the Luna money went, man. He knew this was coming. He was like, all right, what remote island can I build a bunker in? Yeah.
So maybe he is chilling in on his couch, but in the bunker, right? Like,
never specified what
he's
living
not
room.
freaking out.
Why not?
Yeah, that's hard to believe.
Yeah.
He also said, quote,
no, go ahead.
He also says, quote, for something that has notice in the name, it sure gives no notice. Try to search it here, found nothing, and then a link with Interpol.
He's being cheeky. He thinks.
Yeah.
Do Kwon, if you're listening to this, I mean, heck, if he's just chilling on the couch, he should be tuned into our podcast, right? Yeah, sure. hit me up. Hit up Poppy, man. We'll bring you on. You can tell your side of this story. No, seriously. I mean, if he does hear this, I'm not going to judge. Give you a fair chance to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, until then, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting story. I mean, the amount of money that was liquidated from markets under his watch, that I can't wait till that goes to trial. I think there's a lot more drama, behind the scenes that we haven't even heard about. So next on the list is the SEC, and I think was it Mister? Was that you that had linked to that, or was that someone?
The SEC story, the Tether story. I think that was Config.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah. So yeah,
I didn't bring up anything about the SEC.
Yeah, so there's a few things going on with the SEC right now. I guess let me kind of highlight what's going on. Recently, there's been a discussion, or there's been a few. One was the discussion that anything on Ethereum, because it's a portion of the network transits through the U.S., that it's under the purview of U.S. government, which effectively means Ethereum is under the entire chains under the purview of the U.S. government. Do you really think that they can enforce that? And does that even make sense? I know there's a good portion of the servers that support Ethereum in the US, but I mean, what kind of precedent would that set?
I think the precedent is dangerous. I think, can they enforce it? Yes. Does it make sense? No. That's my quick hit.
Yeah, I mean, that is the classic SEC tactic. It's doing stuff you'd never expect could be allowed legally, but then somehow they do it, or they threaten it, and then they say they're going to do it for 2 years, and then it just turns into nothing. I think it's probably just another scare tactic, realistically. I mean, a lot of these things they don't act on. I mean, the only case, or not the only case, but I mean, the only latest example of not just this SEC, but just federal departments getting involved with crypto would obviously be the Tornado Cash thing. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they're going to enforce it, but it probably is just like a scare tactic trying to build upon the tornado stuff.
This is like the root of a lot of my argument of why I try to remind people you don't want regulation coming. The regulators are what got us here. The regulators are why crypto exists. Their incompetence and their malice, and they're just going to make it worse, and they're going to do horrible things. And everything I hear coming out of the SEC just is consistent with that.
I mean, do you think that there's a way that they could implement some sort of regulatory oversight in the U.S., kind of similar to, doesn't the U.S. also have purview over the internet at large? Maybe.
I mean, the U.S. makes all kinds of claims. It has the Monroe Doctrine, where it claims like it's peace, it's border to protect. It's half the world, So yeah, it's got the power, but do we want it?
Well, to be serious, I think the SEC does, or some governmental institution, right? There is an entity that I believe can do regulation that's not an overreach, right? For better or worse, whatever your thoughts are on regulation. It's just that they just have to stop being lazy, right? Because the way that we're seeing regulation getting rolled out currently is on the back of regulatory frameworks that have existed for decades, if not damn near a century, right? And we're in a different world, right? That's part of the issue that we saw with trying to regulate the internet was, there were no frameworks to deal with digital content and digital speech, right? So some new regulation had to be enforced or had to be created in order to enforce, right? So what we're not seeing today is any type of new regulation. So what they're doing is they're shoehorning the current digital ecosystem, financial ecosystem into these old frameworks. And that's how you get Tornado Cash being sanctioned by the OFAC, which is it's completely an overreach. Those frameworks were never designed for open source software, right? So we're starting to see the SEC try to shoehorn digital assets into classes that they can enforce, they can regulate.
Yeah,
I think we just need to have more new regulatory frameworks.
And then
I-
But that takes a lot
I
of work.
would start with abolish the SEC and start over from the ground up.
that
Because-
seems extremely unlikely.
I know.
I think personally that
I mean, it's unlikely, but it's a good
there's
scenario.
in my mind, the Biden administration wants to at least appear like they're doing something with respect to cryptocurrency enforcement, and I don't expect any legislation that's going to create some new governing body or create new regulations. Like, I just don't think Congress is able to do very much of anything. So I don't expect them to do anything. So I kind of personally, I think, the SEC is going to continue kind of down this path, and there's going to be some more clear-cut cases of overreach, like along the lines of Tornado Cash, but maybe even more widely felt by the populace. If, let's say, because, like, I mean, for whatever reason, like, SHIB token is something that millions of Americans have, and so if it suddenly becomes impossible to trade your SHIB token, or you can't withdraw it or whatever, like, if they announce some enforcement action that affects a lot of people, I expect they're going to do something along those lines, and it's going to become such a political topic that they'll kind of be forced to hopefully create some reasonable legislation. I'm not holding my breath, but I don't think that's going to happen for several years now. I think it's just going to kind of be status quo for a couple more years at least.
Yeah, if the SEC is good at anything, it's delaying decisions on anything related to crypto. Yeah, I mean, the whole case revolves around the data, whatever data they're looking at, that shows a large number of Ethereum nodes are of U.S. origin. Now, if you look at Etherscan, it shows about 46% are U.S., but that also means the majority of them are not U.S. But because of that, I guess whatever data they looked at indicated that most were. Therefore, as a regulatory body, they could potentially expand their oversight into Ethereum because it's essentially a U.S. securities exchange at that point, right? Now, that's all subject to, like you said, Jay Winter, probably a couple more years of, indecision, debate, discussion, and just being a general pain in the butt of crypto markets. But I kind of see where they might be kind of tipping their hat towards going that direction.
Also,
the
one thing
industry has
to
been. Go ahead.
So, thank you. So one thing to add on to that as well is that the IPFS, the interplanetary file system, which is what is used with Ethereum for like practically, I think it is everything. A lot of it is actually using Amazon S3 and other centralized object storage services. So the US is kind of right. Like it is enforceable in a way because well, obviously, Amazon kind of has to bow to the overseeing gods. So yeah, I don't know. I think it is possible. It's just, you know, with that fact, it is a little bit scary.
Yeah, so I think, you know, with the SEC stuff and the regulatory stuff, there's just going to be a lot. I think there's going to be even more and more news about this and a lot more coming out over the next couple of months as the U.S. government, as you said, Mr. is at least trying, I think it was Mr. maybe Jay Winham, said that, you know, the government's at least trying to make some level of effort to acknowledge crypto because it is now a voting matter, something that people care about enough to make their decision on, you know, who they're voting for based on that. And it also is growing large enough that it's actually important enough that we need to be considering it, you know. So looking forward to seeing what comes out of that, but I don't expect anything to move fast. And let me see.
Here's a closing thought on that one thing for me is, you know, government is of, at least ours is of the people, for the people, by the people, right? And government serves the people's interests. So I have to wonder at the end of the day, who the hell is out there that actually wants this regulation from the SEC? Is it the people, or is it the banks? And that, you know, the entrenched interests, right? And that's what rubs me a little bit the wrong way. It's as far as I can tell, it's not in my interest. That's nothing that I want. As far as I can tell, that's the case for a lot of folks in the crypto space. So where is this coming
Absolutely.
from, right?
Yeah. This is a power play. And there's nothing beneficial here. It's being weaponized and used against crypto because of obviously the interest that crypto threatens by design.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm like, I know it's radical to say like abolish the SEC, but it's like, no, like they have obviously overstated their bounds. They've been weaponized, and there's nobody's begging for the SEC. They want, and the industry has been begging for clarity forever. And they've denied it and said, was it Library was looking to settle with their case, and the SEC said no, pay us money, and they're like, okay, well, are you going to give us some guidance, or are you still opening the door to sue us in the future? And they're like, they won't answer. You know, it's corrupt, it's horrible, nothing good to it, in my opinion. Yeah, it would be nice if I could trust some sensible regulation, but I absolutely don't. You know?
Yeah, I would say
going back to what Mr. said, stuff will move slow, but governments are interested in it, definitely. Because, you know, it's like with the CBDCs, they want to control population with the blockchain, but at the same time, they gotta move slow because they gotta learn everything and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, and I would say just as a counterpoint that, and you did kind of touch on it, but it would some crypto friendly regulation wouldn't be a bad thing. There's, I mean, a day doesn't pass where there's not another massive hack, scam, rug pull, theft, whatever it may be, right? And precious few resources, laws, or anything to fall back on to, you know, help prosecute those folks.
What is the credibility of the prosecutors? What is the credibility of the traditional financial system? The only reason crypto exists is because of their horror and corruption. You know, the case I make is that they don't have the credibility to be the enforcers. They've caused these problems.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's less about enforcement and it's more about a little bit of safety checks up front, right? What if there was a crypto-specific version of the FINRA, right, that requires just full certification by any crypto project, right? That's looking to.
But that
to sell
doesn't
to the public.
require a state doing that. Like the crypto industry could get together and voluntarily establish these standards and do these things.
Yes, right.
Yeah, they could.
That's what I'm saying. Is
But-
maybe we need something new.
Oh, I'm all for that. For a voluntary solution that's not enforced at the end of a gun, rock on. Absolutely for it. And frankly, the crypto industry should have done this a long freaking time ago. Because now that's the state stepping in to do it and hey, everyone that aped into or degened into Luna and Celsius and helped create those problems, that's also why the regulators are showing up. You know, have higher standards for the projects you jump into.
Yeah, it is an interesting discussion, right? I think we're kind of split between really crypto purist view of the future and what's possible and what we could do, and I think would be phenomenal, and then kind of the more realist view of the SEC isn't going away, right? Governments aren't going away, aside from just some catastrophic collapse of governments that would probably be more important things to worry about than crypto at that point. That they're going to remain, and that we're going to have to find a way to either compromise and work with them as much as possible, even if they don't always want to work with us, or just go rogue. And at that point, you're operating like, I don't know, rogue networks, I guess. Ethereum goes rogue as like its own nation state in its own currency, right? That would be pretty cypherpunk.
What we're more likely to see is that crypto possibly, there's a possible bright future. Crypto brings the technology and creates a situation where states have to compete for the attention of crypto. And then you get regulators trying to actually encourage crypto to come to their jurisdiction and want to be there. And the only way part of the way we get that environment is where crypto doesn't have to be bound by regulation and by jurisdiction. Like when you start getting states competing for the crypto people and the crypto ecosystem to be in to choose to be in their jurisdiction, that's when you see a brighter world for crypto, in my opinion.
Right. You get Miami coin, then you get Colorado that accepts their tax payments in crypto now, right?
You get El Salvador that I hear people talking
Those are
all
the
the time
incentives
about,
that
I'm
need to-
thinking about moving,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good point. Introduce it at more
same.
of a local, regional level first.
Anyway, I could give an example as well. For example, in Spain, I was going to pay a gas bill, sorry, and you could pay with crypto. They had a service, and then you find out the IRS was behind it.
There was a service to pay your gas bill with crypto, and the IRS was actually behind it.
Natural gas, sorry.
Interesting. If you get more information on that, maybe bring that into the next podcast. I'd be curious to know.
I'm curious, was it the Spanish IRS or the U.S.?
Spanish
or the U.S.?
Spanish IRS.
The Spanish equivalent. Oh, interesting.
They wanted that wallet address. That's a
they really
government honeypot right there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take us on to the next topic, and this is just a little bit of irony. So a 23-year-old Canadian gentleman who calls himself the Crypto King. This guy not only had a reputation in the crypto space, he also had investors to the tune of $35 million from 140 folks. He just had $2 million worth of assets seized as he's being sued over allegations of defrauding investors. Some of the assets that they seized were Lambos, McLarens, some BMWs. According to 29 different creditors, they say that he owes them tens of millions of dollars. Isn't this just, and this is the shame, right? The part of crypto that is most visible to people is always the bad news. This is going to make headlines. People are going to see this and think, okay, that's crypto right there. Just, some crypto bro that fleeced a lot of investors that probably bought a bunch of, NFTs at the top and Lambos, and he's not paying anyone back. It's so frustrating that these are the things that make headlines. I think
isn't that kind of by design? And like the reporting agencies, like the news agencies, which side do you think they're on? Crypto or TradFi? And
I think they're on the side of whatever draws in, traffic. I think a lot of these guys, which kind of shows that the negative narratives of crypto probably are the predominant one. They probably make more money from that than say a feel-good article about how maybe a third world hyperinflated economy can take advantage of crypto markets, or right now, if you're English, if you're European, having kept your money in the US dollar over the past couple months or in a stable coin, would have been a far better move than anything else, right? I believe, Oz, you were even saying that before the call, that you had moved some of your pounds into stables, right?
Yeah, luckily the USDT kind of saved me there. I mean, it was definitely unplanned, but it's, just how it happened to play out.
Yeah, that's true. I would love to hear from other folks too. If you're listening and you're just one of those people that's in one of the many countries whose fiat currency is just tanking right now, but you happen to have a lot in stable coins, either on purpose or maybe just randomly because that's the bear market and you're waiting. Drop a comment in there. I think this is a really interesting story to tell, and I would love to hear more personal experiences about it. But yeah, the crypto bro, did you guys ever think that it would be easier just to be a malicious like hacker or scammer in crypto than to try to follow the rules and be friendly GM and not rug pull people?
I mean, sure, it's easier for, if you're lazy and you don't have what it takes to truly build something, sure. But for me, it wouldn't, I think the emotional load and just the psychological impact of knowing all the harm that you've done, I think that there's something that's intangible, but that's a real thing, right? And so from that way, I don't think it's easier at all. So these
Yeah.
people that are able
Yeah.
to get away with it and sleep at night or just tweet that they're maybe just chilling, right? There's got to be some sort of psychological issue going on there that allows them to continue, right? And get sleep because
Yeah, you
just
gotta be
thinking
like all
about,
kind of messed
ruining
up.
3 lives, yeah, let alone 1,000,000 lives. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
My answer, I'm not a sociopath, so that's not even an option for me.
no, I tend to agree with Mr. Mister there. However, there always has to be the devil's advocate, and there isn't actually much incentive to being like a white hat hacker per se, in the crypto space. Because in Web 2, you have these huge bug bounties. You get paid 100K for some of the smallest flaws, and these companies are pretty much raised on the idea that there shouldn't be any mistakes, and if there are mistakes, then they're going to have to pay heavily. And I think the Web3 space kind of needs to reinforce that too, because I mean, a lot of the times you're going to be winning millions of dollars versus like maybe a 10K bug bounty.
Well, no,
So,
I was watching a guide with he had a Twitter thread that went on for a good ways, and he was saying he had started to pick up Solidity like 6 months ago, and now he had some dev skills and really focused on it, but he just got paid out I think $100,000 on a bounty.
oh really? Is that like Coinbase or something? Or
Oh gosh, I forget what project it was. It was OpenSea actually. Credit to them.
oh really?
Yeah.
Fair play. Okay,
Oh,
they're
I
usually
also
not very
saw that
good at
one.
that stuff.
I also saw that one. Yeah, so nice.
Yeah, I think it was more like 300,000. I think it was, I don't know, 300 ETH or something, 400 ETH maybe.
Damn.
I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it was 6 months of his life investment, and he got paid a pretty penny though.
Yeah, that's a big payoff. Fair play. I mean, yeah, I kind of hope that the bigger companies would start to do that, and that's good to see that they kind of have. Although it's weird that it's OpenSea of all people. They're traditionally very awful at like customer service and security in general. I remember there was like a big OpenSea exploit in the early months of this year, and they were really slow to respond. But it's good that they're kind of catching up, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
About what I said
Shout
earlier.
out to all the white hats out there. You're doing good work, guys.
God's work.
What I
Yeah.
said
Well, that's what
earlier
makes
about the
the evil.
bills, I shared some links in the live stage chat on Discord. So if you want to check it out, just translate the pages.
All right. Thanks, Config.
That's what makes the malicious stuff all the worst, is that you can make as much money, if not more, and be, happy on top of that and be a good person and doing things legit.
Yeah, you don't have to ruin lives to get rich, it seems. At least not anymore.
Imagine that.
Who'd have thought?
I always think there's just so many insincere, dishonest people in the space that take advantage of how challenging it is to navigate crypto. I mean, I think in some ways that adds to the challenge of like not getting hacked, not getting scammed or rugged, right? I mean, you think about, maybe we're all used to it, but opening a Web3 wallet, navigating the space, dodging scammy contracts, fake contracts, fake coins, it's hard. It's very hard. And, I would love to see some sort of like law enforcement agency just do like a really substantive deep dive analysis of like just how many scammers and hackers and all these other folks are active in the space. I don't even know if you could tell, right? But I feel like it's just so prevalent. And that's what brought up that question. I was, just thinking, I'm like, so many of these guys do get away with it. The guy that cost me most of my portfolio last year, the index hacker, he just, now that was kind of controversial because the project sued him in Canadian court. He's Canadian. And he just, and they said, hey, during the court case, you need to turn over all the funds until we decide whether or not you legally obtained them, because he was making an excuse of code is law and said that he fairly got it because the smart contract was able to provide him those funds. Instead of turning those in after, by the way, he swore that he was going to get an elite crypto lawyer, my favorite quote from him. Instead, he just didn't show up to court and disappeared into, who knows, the forests of Canada. I have no idea where he went, but he never showed up. Now, what's funny, though, a year later, after the hack, we haven't really heard anything from him. He never showed up to court. No one ever arrested him, whatever. His wallet was drained in another hack. I think it was just like 2 weeks ago, his entire wallet. So I guess I donated to the black hat that took his funds, but you know what? I'm okay with it. That's karma, though.
Well, actually, we don't know that his wallet was drained, because if I'm him, I stage a hack on my funds. Right. So if the state does show up, I'm like, they stole it.
True. Others were hacked. So we I think that the prevailing thought, there was a Zach XBT kind of summary of it. It was pretty good. So it's probably not him. But even if it is, then okay, fine. I guess he's a really clever dude, but secretly I'm just hoping that's karma, right? And I wish we saw more karma. There was a guy just a few days ago. He used to run one of the largest, like the NFT Instagram account, and scammed lots of people. And his entire wallet was also drained this week. He complained about it on Twitter, but what was funny was thousands of people commented basically telling the guy, good. We don't like you, good. So, say what you will, at least sometimes karma does punish these guys.
And I think you're right as far as the education that needs to happen, and it just kind of reinforces and highlights how early we still are, right? Because until we can get to the point where these financial services or crypto is as accessible as buying something on eBay with those kinds of protections that eBay gives, or being able to just click one button and send money to your friend, right? There are always going to be scams. And to that point, it's so early. And I think it's something that we need to remind ourselves, because I think we do run the danger of just having that bias and being a little bit blind to, we're in it every day, right? So for us, what we think is easy is really not easy for most people. Like take Discord, for example, right? I never really considered how difficult Discord might be for an organization that wants to build a new community on a new platform called Discord. But I just ran into and talked to some dude that has a startup, and their entire business is focused on helping enterprise set up communities on Discord. Like, just that bit of expertise is considered specialized, right? So, I mean, crypto at large is even more vast and more specialized. I think there just needs to be more work in that end.
Well, in this thread, sorry to harp on the regulator, the law enforcement kind of aspect of it, but as long as we're waiting on them to solve these problems, we're not going to be solving them ourselves in a voluntary, global ecosystem kind of way. Because like I said, they're going to do
that what
bad.
Crypto is to some extent, though?
I think I agree. I think I agree more with Mr. here, that there's still so much work that could be done to just, for instance, use Bitcoin or Ethereum. Like, for the average person, using Electrum or MetaMask is, probably infinitely more complicated and scary than trying to log on to Discord, which is also something the average person doesn't do. Like, I think that there's still a lot of user experience stuff and a long way to go on that end, which is totally separate from anything that the SEC does, since at least Bitcoin is a totally kind of safe token in their eyes. But I do think you're starting to see, I think Coinbase really recognize that, and they're investing a lot in their Coinbase wallet. And just personally, I think, on that front, there's no good wallet, really. Maybe Coinbase is the best, but there's no good mobile wallet that supports Bitcoin and Ethereum right now.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you on Coinbase's wallet, right? I think it's that the new trend there is MCU, right? Multi-compute. I forget what U stands for, but it's essentially built on the principle where you don't hold all your keys. You hold half the keys, and the other half is held by
Oh yeah,
Coinbase,
yeah.
right?
I mean,
So,
that idea goes back to like Green Wallet, launched by Blockstream, everyone's favorite bogeyman from 2017 or whatever. But yeah, that's like a
oh,
really cool new trick. And actually, there's a new Monero wallet called Rhino Wallet, I think, that's doing the same thing. But like, just that's great, and hopefully it's a step in the right direction. But I still think there's just a long way to go on usability for normal people. Like, we are not normal people, and it's hard for us to even comprehend how difficult it is for quote unquote normal people, I think.
right. And I think to Jared's point is we're in this place where we're kind of like waiting for this regulation, but to some extent, isn't what we're doing here on this podcast, being crypto investors, being builders in DeFi, NFT, isn't that what we're kind of doing to some extent? Is we are trying to push the boundaries, we are trying to force their hand to give us the regulation, and maybe in a better world than maybe exists right now, um, maybe we, as kind of the collective we, are the ones that are going to drive the regulatory innovation, right? I think there's a little bit of what is that, civil disobedience that coming into play here, right? If you don't agree with the system, if you think that it can be better, do your part, whether it's in investing in crypto or supporting crypto projects or supporting entities that are pushing back against regulatory overreach. That's a form of civil disobedience, in my opinion. So put your actions where your beliefs are, and if you don't agree with the way
Absolutely
it's
agree.
going, then let's try to do something to change it.
Yep, absolutely.
I would
Yeah,
just add there, sorry to interrupt, Jared, that I don't think it necessarily has to be civil disobedience even. There's just so much gray area, and it's so nebulous that if you have an idea and you're not sure about it, like, I used to kind of err on the side of caution and say, hey, maybe, that might be a security, and then you could get in trouble for selling unregistered securities or something. But kind of at this point, I'm just like, go do it, and wait for somebody to tell you that you're not allowed to do it. Like, I think as long as you're not doing anything egregious, then you'll just get, a letter that says, please stop this, or we might do something. So I think, yeah, go out there and push the boundaries.
Well,
I agree with you in that
for someone
respect.
like
Can I
myself,
get that in
sorry.
writing in case anybody comes knocking? I can say, but
Yeah.
No, this is
Oh,
not legal
and
advice.
here's
This
the
is
thing.
not legal advice.
For someone like myself who doesn't have the most popular of political opinions, I'm like, I will be made an example of. Like, you'll have 100 people that get that letter, but for me, it'll be a different situation. And they've done this before. If you have the wrong opinion, you're the wrong person. You get the law enforced. Other people don't, because they've already done it. They haven't laid the law down equally.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to what you're trying to do. There's definitely a scale that you climb up of things that will be on the government's radar, things that they will possibly punish people for. Most of what we're talking about, and most people on here really don't have to worry about that, I think. But the one thing I do feel passionate about is this space could be easier to navigate and use. Wallets, oh my gosh, there's got to be a better way. There's nothing more terrifying than trying to send funds between two wallets or, two accounts or whatever, and copying and pasting that long wallet address is like the scariest thing I've done in my life.
But
Like,
but
really?
it gets less scary over time, right? And I think that's what's needed is just a little bit more time in the oven, right? It will get there, right?
Yeah.
It's just
It does get
that
less
comfort
scary,
Myself-
but
Myself, I do get scared when I just paste the address, and what if I don't receive the funds?
yeah. Well, and imagine your parents or grandparents or, someone that's not so tech savvy, trying to onboard them. And I think when you talk about crypto adoption, that's probably the biggest blocker right there.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no easy way to do it. I would have to sit down, I'm thinking like my parents, I'd have to sit down, I'd probably need like 2 hours to walk through just setting up a wallet and trying to transfer funds.
Yeah, that'd be like the base level.
Yeah, that's not even
And not
talking
even
about
citing, yeah, not even exchanges and stuff like that.
yeah.
Well, there is the Taurus network, and that makes things obscenely easier, where you can use things like your Reddit account, your Discord account, your Twitter account, your Gmail, general email. You can use those. Like, I can send funds to Mr. Poppy, your Twitter account, and you can log in with a wallet that supports that Taurus network and see those funds. Now, don't get me wrong; it's great for quick onboarding, but it's not. Of course, you don't put a whole bunch of funds in there, because if Twitter decides they don't like you and they cut you off from your account, you also lose funds to that wallet. So it's convenient for quick onboarding for petty cash. But I think we're going to see more and more solutions like that. Like that, and I'm totally with you guys. Like the education, there's a lot of low hanging fruit to solve in the crypto sphere.
Yeah. So for
I mean,
go ahead.
DNS domains and that stuff just
Yeah.
solves it, but it's not enough, because you gotta know how to buy one, and
Yeah.
It's
Well, you
not-
got to know how to buy one, and it's chain specific. You need a general like crypto ecosystem solution.
Exactly. So final topic, and then we'll move into some Q&A. Tether was getting called out recently. I don't know if you guys saw the news, but the U.S. government wants Tether to provide, really truly provide proof that they have collateral backing their stable coin. Do you think? I think we might have even talked about this a little bit last week, but I feel a lot better about this happening now than I would have, say, a year ago.
Well, especially because Tether's taking a pretty comfortable position on it, right? They're like, "Hey, bring it. We were going to do this anyway. Okay, we didn't want a court order because we have to give more documents than before, but yeah, we're going to do it." So that gives me hope that they are legit and we don't find a big old gap in their balance sheet. Because if their balance sheet starts looking like Celsius, then we're going to have a problem, right? And I think that the fear is just going to crank up. I think the fear gauge on crypto right now is extreme fear, right? I think it was at like 20, 23, 25, something like that. I would expect that to go even further towards the fear side if we see that Tether has anything but a one-to-one backing. That's going to be scary. But I have hope. They are telegraphing some confidence. So
I think
maybe
so.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, and
I think if Tether's mostly solvent, we're pretty good. If they're like, even if it's like 88%, probably okay. But unless it's an absolute monster.
Yeah, but
Tether is okay. They are okay, most likely.
I think in other related stablecoin news, though, the U.S. government is talking about banning algorithmic stablecoins. I'm kind of inclined to say maybe we should. Maybe we haven't quite figured out the perfect way to manage algo stablecoins. Although I know there are some in the market that haven't imploded, collapsed, or whatever. They do, to me, anecdotally, as a non-engineer, non-kind of financial whiz, they just feel needlessly risky. I don't know. Do you guys have an opinion on that? Like, I know a lot of DeFi protocols have been standing up their own, even smaller algo stablecoins, because I think it's just a lower barrier to entry versus just having a lot of cash on hand to back those. And also having a lot of cash on hand maybe is just harder for a decentralized protocol to manage as well.
Well,
And it's harder to bootstrap, right? If you have to fully collateralize that stablecoin. But I think there are so many different kinds of stablecoins in name. Like, does it apply to any stablecoin that uses any sort of algorithm, or are fractionally collateralized stablecoins okay, even though they rely on algos a little bit? And finally, I think this is a learning phase, right? And I do believe that there can be some system built that can be fully algorithmic, but I just don't think it's going to be able to get done at the scale that projects are operating at now. But if you have a big corporate with their resources and the timelines that they operate on, where you don't have to launch because everybody's asking when launch, you can launch when it's ready and it's been tested and fully hardened, then there can be a world. What worries me is just the lack of foresight to just go, hey, these people got rugged, or they lost their investment one way or the other. Okay, all of a sudden that thing shouldn't exist anymore, and that comes at the cost of innovation. And for me, that is what America is, right? Or that is what westernized capitalist societies are. They are fueled by innovation, right? Well, consumption, but
Hey,
innovation
mister,
begets consumption, in my opinion.
hate to cut you off. You're muted on Reddit side. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
speech.
Oh my God.
The
So
whole
sorry.
time.
Beautiful
The whole
speech.
time.
Yeah, but thank you to the comments who mentioned that no sound was coming through. You're amazing.
Sorry,
Yeah.
everyone. I'll shut up now. That's embarrassing. Oh my God.
No worries. He had a really good commentary on the challenges in the future of stable coins, and it's a good time to note that I had to update some account information, and I'm a little bit behind on uploading episodes to the podcast site, but I'll have that done this week. Post in here when we do, and you guys can listen to it at your leisure. So let's move into some Q&A. That's that honestly it's my favorite part. So if you guys see some comments, I'm going to look on the Reddit side if someone wants to go through the Discord side and see if we have anything.
I see none on Discord.
Oh, there's live stage chat all the way down there. Let's see. Config almost sounds like an adult. And then Dopal said, reminded us that Config is actually a 47-year-old car salesman who just loves crypto.
Yeah, but that's the Discord lore.
Yeah, let's see. Okay. Yeah, Moonbrow. I mean, I think we did hit the devil's advocate role in terms of regulation. I mean, you could take it either way, that it's inevitable, or that we shouldn't embrace it, and we just forge our own path. Let's see.
Not many questions for today.
Lots of comments. Yeah, I haven't found questions, but a ton of comments, which I love seeing as well. If I see something interesting, I'll highlight it. But
Hey, there's a question on Discord. Thoughts on Algorand state proofs?
What's the question?
Thoughts on Algorand state proofs?
On Algo? On Algorand.
Yeah.
State proofs. That sounds over my head. I don't even know what a state proof is.
It's an interoperability standard.
Oh.
Pretty much. It's like a trustless protocol standard they're trying to implement. I don't know if they have implemented it or whatever. I mean, I don't know enough about Algorand. I have heard of it at a conference.
Isn't Polkadot doing something similar with like standardized API for cross-chain communications or something. I think just for those.
XCM, I think it is, or something like that. I don't know. Huin will be able to tell you. He's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for
Before
those
the
type of things, like it doesn't matter until other chains are using it, and to date, it doesn't seem like any of these things are really getting adopted in a meaningful way.
Here we go. Yeah,
Well,
cross
because everybody's
consensus
doing their own
system.
version, kind of, right? So
Yeah.
there's so much.
Right,
so
it's
much
like that
competition, but that's a good thing.
XKCD comic where there's like 15 versions and the guy's like, oh, these all suck, I'm gonna start my own version. and then there's 16 versions, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you can become interoperable if literally everybody uses a different standard. It's odd. I think, more cooperation between parties would be really good. But for as far as, interoperable standards go, I say Polkadot takes the cookie, if anybody is going to be able to, because they already implement it with their parachains, which, I mean, for all intents and purposes, are separate chains, and they can communicate with each other. So yeah, I mean, Algorand, Polkadot
Well,
probably takes the
don't rule out Cosmos. Cosmos has a lot of interoperability between a few different chains as well.
This is
Yeah.
like that's exactly what I was talking about, and I just think if there was some Ethereum standard that rolled out in 6 months, like then none of those other standards would probably matter, right? Like it's
for
about
sure.
getting people using one standard, and I think there's just to date
That's a
nobody.
challenge.
Yeah, obviously
well,
nobody's
you know-
succeeded.
Yeah.
Well, Jared's not going to like my comment, right, that I'm about to say now, but if we take analogies from Web 1, Web 2, right, I think it's not going to be self-regulation that makes it happen. There are just too many competing interests, and their incentives aren't there for everybody to work together on just one standard from a competing protocol, for example, right? So what might need to happen is a standards body. Or maybe it's the IEEE comes in and starts to say like, hey, this is the standard that we chose. We went through an extensive review process and we ratified this. This is the standard. If you want to say that you are IEEE compliant and you are adhering to those standards, then you have to use this one protocol, right? And that, I think that's a little bit going down the regulatory field, but I mean, I don't believe it's going to just naturally happen. And one day, a few founders are going to wake up and be like, hey, yeah, I should use the other guy's thing,
Actually,
and
Mr. Bruce, did you know that the UL listing on electronics, which is a pretty
Yeah.
big deal, it's a big standards thing. That was an involuntary body that got together and do that. That wasn't regulation. And it's incredibly successful and it's adopted around the world. And crypto can do that. You don't need the gun of the state to make this stuff happen. We all see the value in
Yeah.
it. We agree that it's necessary and we can make it happen. And if we do, there's the greater chance that the regulators won't step in and mess things up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and
you
to be
know,
clear, the IEEE isn't a regulatory body either, right? That is a self kind of
Fair.
recognized body.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
if I was going to be the devil's advocate, I would say that you would need to get Bitcoin and Ethereum camps to come together and work together.
Well, and it is possible
Oh,
to
so it's never going to
execute-
happen?
Good luck.
Okay, cool.
No. It is possible to come up with a specification that is open to all these different processes, chains to meet. It doesn't have to be specific to one.
You're right.
You just come
you're
up
right.
with a particular spec.
I'm being a little bit cheeky here, but it's anytime I see them talking about good ideas, like Ethereum has some great ideas, Bitcoin has some great ideas, but anytime they try to say, hey, maybe you guys should look into this, it's like oil and water. And I feel like it's just the challenge in the space is very tribal, very, very tribal. It's like sports teams, man. It's crazy.
You know what I'm seeing starting to grow? I'm starting to see people who identify more with like just crypto in general and not a particular chain. I'm seeing more people that aren't married to one chain and they embrace
Yeah.
crypto in general.
A lot of people are becoming more diverse, and while you say that, it's not always the case that they're like fully for globally crypto. One thing I've seen a lot is also like just siding with a specific consensus mechanism rather than a specific project, which is also quite an interesting aspect of tribalism. But yeah, while some of the tribalism is unwinding, it's kind of also growing in some areas.
Yeah.
I guess from my perspective, and to shill a little bit for a recently successful fundraiser, that Magic Grants is a nonprofit organization that I'm a part of. We recently helped fund Newt, or Elizabeth Ethereum, to do continued work on Ethereum and Monero atomic swaps. And so these are totally trustless swaps where you can swap not only ETH for Monero across chain, but she's working on a method that I think she's about wrapped up to swap tokens, so you could swap USDC directly from the Ethereum network for Monero, and it's like a trustless transaction. And this kind of technology exists to do Bitcoin Monero swaps or Bitcoin Ethereum swaps. So I think if it works with Bitcoin and Monero, obviously there should be a way to make it work between Ethereum and other smart contract enabled platforms. So hopefully we'll start to see some usable implementations where you're not relying on any standards body or anything. Like, it's just leveraging specific opcodes or smart contract functionality to be able to do it on chain, using like hash pre-image secret sharing or whatever the math is behind it. And that, yeah, we'll start to see smaller projects that are able to incorporate it, and it can kind of grow from the ground up rather than having some top-down organizational body direct the method of swapping.
Yeah. Yep. When have you seen, like, there's Wallet Connect version 2 coming out, and that's going to be like chain agnostic, a methodology to develop your wallet so that it can interact across chains, so I can.
No, I haven't seen that, but I'm gonna go look now, actually. Thank you.
Wallet Connect, like, I know people don't really think about this. I didn't until I was in the industry, is that there's a protocol and a standard for how you connect your DApp to a wallet. Like when MetaMask goes in, or Kukai, or whatever you're using to connect to a particular DApp, there's some way to implement that and some backend. It requires some server somewhere that sends that information around. Do you use a more decentralized option or not in Fear or something else? And I'm really, really happy to see Wallet Connect. That's just one example of how we're seeing more of a general crypto solution rather than everybody doing it their own special little way.
Yeah, I would love if Wallet Connect was a little friendlier. I use Wallet Connect a lot. Makes it a little bit easier because I hate, what I hate is most wallets, I just hate using the actual wallet to browse sites. They're almost never that, it's almost never a very elegant solution and kind of laggy in my experience.
Interesting. You've had a laggy experience with Wallet Connect. That was version 1.
No. With the native wallet. So I use Wallet Connect.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's why I'm so
Browser
happy to
wallet.
see it coming around. Like, we built, was it Beacon, which uses Element servers to create the connections, and the choice was made so that it is super decentralized, and it's great. No one can take it away. But also, if you want a quick presentation and stuff like that, and you're looking to onboard people, and people want that quick, snappy feel and everything like that, you want something that's, it may be centralized in one area, but it's fast and it connects.
Yeah. Well, anything to make the wallet experience better is a win in my book. So very excited about that. Looking at the comments, I think I saw one more. Oh yeah, here's someone. This is just someone's experience, but I love reading this kind of stuff. Someone had a lot of ADA that they had bought with Euro, but when it came to the beginning of the bear market, they moved into stablecoins, presumably because that's just what was available on the exchange. So I bet a lot of people have a similar experience. They just, swapped into US dollar stables because of convenience, and you probably made a lot of money on that. just, this is something I was talking to the wife about because she has some money in some foreign banks and some foreign investments. And she moved some over last year. We're talking about when to send it back over. So I think a lot of people are waiting to see when the dollar tops. And I know we're not really a Forex community, but I bet a lot of people are going to be looking to swap out of stable coins at a certain point, because I feel like when the dollar does begin to drop, it's going to drop fast and hard.
Well, if you look at the past, if you look at history and you look at the Doxy chart, the Dixie chart, the DXY, that is the case, right? So, I mean, shit, we're on the path for a blow off top on the dollar chart, in my opinion.
Parabolic, yeah, it's a parabolic move. I mean, if you believe in technical analysis, right, is that big move up is going to blow up and go the other direction and it's like painful of a way as possible.
When moon dollar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically. Let me see. Anything else? To the new people, I see some new folks. Welcome. Love having you on. Yeah, I think we could end with this one, which is a comment on Fiat, saying that Fiat died with the gold standard in the 1900s. I was looking at the chart. That chart I posted in the reminder post on Reddit earlier today, and I actually had that up all the way to the beginning of the data that TradingView actually keeps, which I believe goes back to the gold standard. Do you guys remember what year? It was in the 70s. We remember what year they moved off the gold standard for the dollar?
Yeah, wasn't that Nixon? So
in any case, if you look at the chart for the dollar and you go back to the 60s, other than one big move in the 80s when they're actually tackling some massive inflation, then ever since the late 80s, the dollar has actually been a pretty terrible performer relative to some other currencies and emerging economies. And you look at places like China, was it China and who's this? Yeah, Japan, and their economies really outperforming in some regards, right? Not entirely, but outperforming the U.S. That pattern has been very much reversed, though, for the first time since the early 2010s. Starting around 2011, we see the dollar, it hit its low. And it's just really been on a gradual uptrend now ever since then. So for almost a decade. So technically, this upside move isn't new. This has been happening for a while. I think, yeah, it's rallied, almost 60% since 2010's, the Doxy. It's pretty wild. But with that, I think we're at the end. Any final comments from you gentlemen?
Innovation.
That's all I like it. That's why we're here. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Really loved having you on. Loved all the discussion. Loved the questions. Loved having our biggest group of podcasters yet. If you are interested in joining our little team, I'm going to be making a post later. We're not only looking for more people that can help on the podcast behind the scenes with the editing, also looking for a little more representation. Would love to have more women on the podcast. Would love to have more geographic representation instead of this is really a very European American centric podcast, but that's only a small portion of the world. Would love to know, what folks in other continents think even. So, you know how to find me on Reddit, on Discord, on Twitter. Hit me up if you want to help. And that's it. Trade safely this week, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Love you. Thank you.
Peace.